Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to today's event. I'm Jason Gumpert from msdynamicsworld.com, and I'm pleased to be able to host this event all about planning your Dynamics AX mobility roadmap. Our presenters today are Rehan, Mobeen, and Oveis from Folio 3, and it's great to have them with us for the first time today. We hope to keep this an interactive session. You can ask questions, of course, at any point. Look for the Q&A block you should see to the right of the main presentation area. We will also have several poll questions just to gauge our audience feedback and learn a little more about you, so please be on the lookout for those. The first one should begin shortly. So without any further delay, I'm going to hand things off to Oveis to start us off.
Thanks, Jason. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thanks for joining the session today. So I think, as Jason mentioned, we aim to keep it an interactive session. We'll have a few polls as well during the session, so we'd love if you guys can respond so, we can have a good discussion towards the end. Of course, the title of our webinar today is Planning Your Dynamics AX Mobility Roadmap. We hope by the end of the session you guys would have a great understanding of the best practices, the challenges when it comes to planning your enterprise mobility, and also in terms of next steps, what's the best way to go about and how important the actual mobile architecture is. So without further ado, I would like to get started. So the presenters for today's session, it's myself, Oveis. I look after digital strategy at Folio 3, in particular our Dynamics and our mobile divisions. I'm joined by Mobeen, who's a technical lead and a senior, technical consultant and also developer for our AX mobility and mobile apps. Also, Rehan is a program manager within our Dynamics AX division. So I'm going to do the intro to start off with, followed by Rehan and Mobeen, who are going to chip in with their own parts. The objectives of today's session are pretty kind of focused. These are the 5 broad areas where we feel towards, by the end of the session, you guys would understand the enterprise mobility, the current enterprise mobility landscape, learn the best practices for your AX mobility roadmap, followed by issues of mobility within enterprise applications. And some of these issues we kind of encountered as well over the years and continue to do so when working with different clients. So, the way we've got it figured out today is, so we kind of tell you what the issue is and we demo an application that we built which kind of, solves that issue. So during, the challenges bit, we'd actually be reflecting mobile apps as well and showing you exactly how Folio 3 has managed to kind of, conquer those issues. Finally, and most importantly, we of course want everyone to leverage their existing implementation when it comes to AX mobility. And for this, what we have is we have a very detailed discussion about our AX mobility architecture. This is something that Folio 3 has developed over the last 4 to 5 years, working extensively with clients and on a lot of custom AX apps and a lot of other apps that we've got on the market, which I'll be talking about briefly. So yeah, we'll tell you about our architecture. Feel free to ask us any questions, and we will take the questions towards the end. The agenda, we'll start off with an introduction to Folio 3 and especially our Dynamics division. We'll move on to enterprise mobility, and we'll talk about 4 areas over here: the need for enterprise mobility, the best practices, our journey to date, challenges and recommendations, and finish it up with the AX mobility architecture towards the end. So just to start off, Folio 3 Dynamics practice, our mission is to be an entrepreneurial partner for Dynamics customers and meet their implementation, integration, and mobile needs in time and cost effectively. Folio 3 has got different divisions. We're a 12-year-old company. We've got core ERP divisions for NetSuite and Dynamics. We've got very strong practices on both of these ERP systems. Of course, they're very different, but we do have the in-house expertise to kind of deal with, deal with these ERPs. We also have a very strong mobile practice, a very strong web practice, enterprise practice, and so on. Our Dynamics team has got deep expertise with Dynamics, and of course, all of our developers and all of our software engineers who are working within the Dynamics team, all certified, on Dynamics, latest certifications. We have an entrepreneurial approach as a company. We were a startup ourselves. We're entrepreneurs who work with entrepreneurs in big companies and small. So that's really the motto here. And commitment to quality and cost and time-efficient delivery. Here are the four broad areas where we focus in within our Dynamics division. So we've got mobility, which is topmost, and historically that's where most of our clients have been. Integration and pre-built e-commerce connectors. So we've got a whole suite of e-commerce connectors that work with AX and basically sync both your e-commerce store with the Dynamics AX ERP. All our solutions, I would just like to add over here, are fully compatible with all versions of Dynamics. So whether it's 2009, 2012, or Dynamics 365, we're supporting all versions. ERP implementation and customization, of course, we've got a range of clients that we've been working with on implementation, customization, BI projects, general UI upgrades, etc. And last but not the least, custom mobile solutions. That's kind of our sweet spot where we work with a lot of clients to help them expose their AX modules onto their handheld devices. This includes, of course, both mobile phones and tablets. The Dynamics practice in numbers, this is really, just a broad overview of our different kind of areas within Dynamics. So we worked on a number of implementation, customization, reporting projects, and continue to do so with some of our clients who've been attached with us for the best part of 5 years now. We are already working on the Dynamics 365 implementation as well. We recently won this. I'm very excited about this because of course, Dynamics 365 being the latest version and which has its own challenges and opportunities for our company. In terms of our mobile apps, we've got over 500 plus active users, and we've built over 15 apps over the time period. Integration connectors, we've got over 10 stores integrated to date. We continue to work on other projects as well. We've got some projects in pilot, some other projects where we are close to deployment, etc. Our clients have predominantly been based in North America. That's overall Folio 3, but we have a growing footprint in Europe and Middle East as well, which is very exciting and brings in its own challenges for our company as well. So we do have onshore resources pretty much based globally, especially in North America, and then also have an offshore hybrid model where we kind of help our customers. This is just a quick overview of some of our mobile apps. The top two, Dynamics and Workflow Approvals, are applications which are available on the app stores as well. So any of you can, after the webinar today, can go away, have a look at these applications. The Dynamics application is a sales and marketing app. So it's great for, front-end sales users, even other decision makers at the company. It exposes the sales and marketing module onto your tablets and handheld devices. It's cross-platform. Works on iOS, Android, and Windows. The workflow approvals, as the name suggests, lets you basically approve any type of workflow. So again, the challenge here and the thing here with our applications is we've got this mobility architecture built. So it's very easy for our tech team to expose any module onto the mobile device. Loss Takers was an app, custom app that we built for one of our clients. Expenses is another application that lets you, approve expenses on your mobile devices. And Survey Tool and Field Services were again two custom apps that we built for clients from the agriculture industry. So this is like an overall Folio 3 kind of, what Folio 3, has, what do we have to show it for all. For it all. So basically, over the last 12 years, we were mapped over 300 clients. These can range from Fortune 500 companies to a lot of startups based out of the Bay Area and Silicon Valley. We've got over 200 employees at Folio 3, and of course, our commitment is customers first, employees forever. And we built over 1,000 web and mobile solutions over the time period. These are some of our marquee enterprise customers. Some of these we're currently working with as well. So we've done, again, a lot of different mobile projects here, a lot of different software projects, web apps, etc. Enterprise Mobility Management is our next section. Over here, we've got 4 areas which we're going to talk about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand it over to Rehan now, who's going to start and cover this section, and I'm going to join the webinar again towards the end.
Thank you, Uwesh. In this section, we'll cover the need of enterprise mobility in this technology area, along with the best practices, like what would enable you to quickly proceed with your mobility roadmap. We'll also cover our experiences and journey on this, plus the usual problems one can face while going mobile, as well as an mobility AX mobility expert. We'll also present you with our recommended solutions for some of these major problems. So let's talk about the need of enterprise mobility here. As you guys know that everything now is getting mobile. People prefer being mobile rather than sitting in front of computers for doing usual stuff. Here we have listed some of the high-level stats. You can see that 75% of employee apps are already built mobile first. So you can see organizations are realizing the need and importance of mobile solutions for their employees. 1 in 5 tablets will be an enterprise device by next year. Isn't that interesting? The majority of employees today do not work in a traditional office setting. They prefer to work from the place of their preference, where they feel more comfortable and productive. 54% of the highest performing IT teams have already deployed enterprise app stores. By enterprise app stores, it means they have their own suite of in-house enterprise applications. 61% of workers report working outside the office at least part of their time. In 2016, the smartphone adoption surpassed 80% of all the mobile phone owners. This milestone was reached in July, and that rate has since increased up to 81% in December. So today, the question should be how to implement mobile. It should not be something like, do we need to go mobile or not? You definitely need to go mobile. For your mobile strategy to be successful, you need to incorporate mobile-first strategy in major aspects of your business. Investment in enterprise mobile sector are mind-blowing. Enterprises will invest up to $61 billion in enterprise mobile apps by 2018. Global market is expected to hit $201.6 billion by 2020. World is just transforming itself into everything mobile. So let's talk about the best practices for getting on the mobility roadmap. Here are some of the major areas you need to consider while planning your AX mobility. First, let's talk about the strategy. You need to chart out your mobile strategy, which would include considering the importance of mobile in your organization, like would it add convenience, would it reduce the efforts, cost, would it increase the productivity, and so on. You also need to understand your customer's profile, and based on that, you can then consider developing the mobile solution, which would add high value to your business accordingly. You also need to understand which types of devices you should aim for, like Apple iOS and Android phones, tablets, Windows phones, etc. You can also consider the native versus mobile versus hybrid kind of apps as per your business needs. You need to make a plan on what would be the execution strategy for your mobile solutions, like you want to do in-house apps, or you would rather go for the technology partners to whom you can outsource your mobile apps development. This may also require you to make adjustments in your budgets accordingly. Once you have successfully worked out your strategy, then you are good to define your project roadmap. Here in project roadmap, you should define the features for your selected mobility solutions with value points against each feature. This way, you can easily identify which of the features are of highest value and should be done first before doing other low value features. The best way to do mobile solution is the agile way, where you should set the timelines and proceed in iterations. And that's how ideal mobile solutions should evolve. Also, you need to understand that mobile is all about design, presentation, and ease of use. So your roadmap must address these factors so as to achieve a good success. We need to understand that mobile is not a one-time build and forget. It is a business, and hence investments have to be treated that way. You need to bring innovations in your mobility solutions. Organizations out there who are experts in this domain can help you with this. Once you are done with the roadmap, you need to consider structuring your organization. Organization structuring means technology perspective as well as some business perspective. With technology perspective, you need to consider the technical and business technical perspective includes robust UI and UX design. You can use service-oriented architecture, like you should consider building APIs for each of the features, as you are not building for one surface but for multiple surfaces, which you may have not seen yet. And for the business perspective, you need to figure out the sales value. You want to know your target audience. You should identify a mobile expertise team. You should plan out a marketing strategy. You also need to know your competition here, and for that you should have the market insights for the concerned areas. After that, you should measure your usage and user feedback. Like you can release beta versions, and then you can measure your usage out of that. It's an ongoing cycle where you should capture user pain point, you should capture the enhancements users are asking, and improve in the next iterations. That's how your mobile product should evolve. While doing this, let's discuss about our journey towards enterprise AX mobility. Like what we faced while working with customers, while working with the enterprise AX mobility solution. So we met the customers who were not enabled. So we had to convince them for the business use and value for having mobile solutions, and we had to invest time to set their expectations, like what value they would get and what to expect after their solutions is mobile. Most of the customers were kind of concerned about security, like what would be the security, like they were concerned about their data getting out of their domain or data getting out onto the internet. So the architecture that we have built, and later on my colleague Mubin will discuss, it's built somehow that we do not store any data on the middleware, and all the data transformed communicate on the SSL architecture. We use secure APIs over SSL and all the encrypted mechanism. So security should not be a concern while building your or considering your mobility roadmap around AX. So, and one interesting thing was the customization. Most or around 99% of our customers had got customizations in their AX implementation. Most of the customers, most of the users out there does not use the vanilla flavor of AX. So customizations with our architecture is not a big deal. Our mobility framework or architecture is quite friendly to customizations. We have built custom applications. We have actually tweaked our product with custom fields and custom workflows as per customers' business needs. From here on, we'll talk about challenges that we have faced while working with enterprise mobility, especially in AX, and I would like Mubin to take on from here.
Thank you, Rehan. That was really informative of you. So, all the attendees, guys, if you have any questions, any area that you want to ask us, anything that's bothering you, you can ask the questions from us, and we'll be glad to answer those. So, let's start with enterprise mobility and challenges. When you plan to jump into achieving an enterprise mobility, there are multiple challenges that will come up, obviously. In this webinar, we have identified some of the most important challenges that we think a customer should consider before jumping into mobility. We've developed this. We found these problems from after developing solutions for multiple customers. Once these challenges are addressed, the road to achieve the mobility in an enterprise becomes quite easier, and enterprise can easily adopt mobility in its enterprise from top to bottom. Now, there are basically, I have identified 6 major challenges that we need to address before we get into the mobility, the core of the mobility. And these are the heart. The first one is security and authentication. The second one is large data sets. The third one is offline data access, performance and availability. The support of customization, one of the most important ones. Some of it was discussed by Rehan. And which app should we develop, native, HTML5 or hybrid? So let's jump on to security and authentication. During this portion, I'll also be giving you demos of our current apps and based on you can get an idea on how basically we go through with these challenges and how we basically implement those challenges. So for security and authentication, let's go into security and retrieval. When an organization is planning to make these enterprise data available over the internet, their biggest concern is, will my data be secure? Are the channels which are providing the data secure? Requests received by the server are from the valid source, or it's provided from a valid authenticated source, and all the information that is coming into my server is properly logged and maintained, so that in future, if I want to do an audit of all the data that come on in my machine from the server, is it properly, it will be able to be audited properly. So for that, we have identified the ways in which we can do this. The first one is securing communication between device and the server. We all know there are multiple ways through which we can secure communication between devices and server. The first one is implementing SSL between the device and the server. So this way, the communication between the server and the client is partially secured. Now the second one is the whole of the communication between a server and a client is based on the authentication, the user authentication that initially the app must provide. API access security is essential for any app to be secure. All the APIs that is communicating with the device needs to be secure. Retrieving the data, user-specific data, has to be encrypted and should not be stored in any area in between, rather so the data should be from the AX side transferred to the mobile device. In between, there should be no maintenance of data or preservation of data. Preserving data ownership. That is one of the important things, that usually when we create an app, we expose more irrelevant data than relevant data onto the user screen. Now we have to make sure that when we are developing an app, the user who's using the app should get only the relevant information and should not be given access to the areas where he shouldn't be there. So we have to make sure that this area, the preservation of data should be secured, and only the user with the right data should be given access to that area. The last one I've already discussed, using SSL and secure transmission. So as we were discussing security and authentication, let's move on to the large data set. Now, the second challenge which an organization faces is how to handle the huge amount of data that we have on the server. Now we all know that that the mobile devices cannot have huge data in it because it has a limited space available. So when we plan to send out the data, we have to do it in a way that only relevant data and only the smallest information that is most important to a user should go through to the app. Now, there are different techniques that we've used in the app that produces good results when we are dealing with large data sets. The first one, as written, is space interval of large data set on devices to reduce network load. Now this is very important. We've experienced this whenever we've developed an app, that if we try to send a huge amount of data onto the server, the first and the most important problem that comes in is the network load. So the network load basically kills out the performance, kills out all the things, the overall app experience, it basically dies out. So when we try to page the data into a smaller chunk of sets, and based on the space information we send out information, the app performance is exponentially better, and the response of the app towards the user is also much more better. The second one is smart search on services in specific areas. Now, usually we have searches on almost every listing and almost only searching areas that we have. So we try to design an app in a way that we provide search area for each and every area. For example, you're seeing a screen on your left that there's a customer list available. Now this customer list has a searching mechanism which a user can use to directly jump into those specific records which he wants. And if I would be able to show you those records, the performance of this data retrieval is really good, because we've tried to cache the data, the frequent access data that we have, we try to cache it on the server side, as well as some of the data is also maintained on the device which usually user access regularly. Also, we don't try to pull in every time the whole data set that we need. We try to use the delta approach for retrieving the data, so the load on the server is basically maintained to a minimum. So these techniques, if we try to implement these techniques when developing an application, it makes sure that the application performance, the large data set is handled in a very smart way. And the searching and overall data retrieval is very conducive for an end user. Now, the next thing, which is also one of the very, very important areas, and I think very few of the apps that I've seen right now have, is offline data access. Offline data access is a feature that very limited mobile apps offer. This also needs to be planned in a smart way. Now, there's a very tricky thing when we are working with offline data access. The questions that come up when we are working with offline data access is that should we maintain the whole data that we are moving on our app, or should we maintain a little amount of data? Now that is the trick that you need to do. There is a line that you have to draw, that every time we are doing a data offline of the data, we need to maintain that. For example, you need to devise a methodology that this is the limit that we have, and this is the data we will do the offline, and the rest will remain when the connection is on. Now, whenever we're trying to do an offline, on the app side, there's a very tricky thing that we need to maintain. There's a local storage database that we need to maintain, and usually the data that is coming out onto the app is switched between the API and the local storage. Also, the local storage data is constantly updated based on the request of the user and the delta that we are getting from the previous calls that we've just discussed in large datasets. So now that local database is up to the mark, and also it's basically synced. Now the problem that comes up is, for example, if I'm offline and the data has changed, and I also try to change the data, what will happen? How will that be maintained? We all know in X that versions are maintained with each record set. That version basically helps us identify which record is more updated than the previous one. So those data which have any recent updates are being notified with a proper message that this data is modified. Please update your data screen and retrieve the new information before you can update any of the information that you have. On the left you have one of our apps, the field services app that Uwais initially mentioned. We did a complete offline for this system. We try to maintain a seamless way to switch between the data access of API and local storage. For example, the seamless way means that if during our way or walking by we lose our connection, so this will not switch off. This will not give an error to an end user that your data is lost, we are unable to connect, or something like that. It's seamlessly switched to the local database, and all the information now is coming from that local data storage. If you are currently on the record, that record is maintained in the local data storage, and the connectivity is built. When the connectivity is built, all the updates and all the information that is stored on the local storage is now then synced with the server whenever the need of the user or the settings that user has set in. So I think that is a very important feature that we have overall. Okay, so the DNS up. The DNS is up. Let me just go onto the app and show you some of the features. Okay, please do it. Yes. Great. So now here you see the list. The list completely contains the workflows that we have for this specific user. The employee associated with him is Tim Litton, and all the information of this user is available in this list. Now you can go into the list, review the information, check check the details, and approve and reject the workflow based on whatever data is available. Guys, if you have any questions, please feel free to put in your questions in the question area, and I'll be glad to answer those. Okay, after the offline data access, the next most important thing that comes up is performance and availability. Now, the performance is the heart of any application, in any mobile application or in any of the server applications also. So we need to maintain a way so that the performance is up to the mark. The proper indexing should be applied on each of the searches that we are doing. The search performance should be as much fast as we can see. The code base should be optimized in a way that minimum modification can incorporate any change that we like. The delta records, as we have discussed, should be retrieved rather than retrieving the whole information. The searching, the normal data that we retrieve, the searching we do, all these informations, all the data should be properly paged in a way so that none of the data should return a huge amount of data which chokes up the server. So it's really important that we maintain this. Now, the next is support of customization. Customization is a key to success in any ERP solution. We all know that without customization, the ERP solution doesn't exist. So a successful ERP solution like Dynamics 8 are those which provide an easier and a very good way to customize solutions. Most of the solutions that we've come across, most of the 8 solutions that we've come across are customized. And most of our clients basically request us to handle those customizations in the mobile app. So we have designed an architecture in which we can easily incorporate that customization in a very easiest, robust, and hassle-free way with a limited amount of time and effort. And it should be user-friendly, and the architecture should be a friendly architecture that can handle each and everything very easily. The next and the last of the areas is what app should we choose? Should we develop an app on the native? Should we use HTML5? Should we use a hybrid app? Now, this truly depends on the use case that every client has. We have developed apps in hybrid mode, we have developed apps in native, and we have developed apps in HTML5 also. So, all of these have their own advantages and disadvantages. I think the biggest thing is to handle the handling of large data sets. Previously, the hybrid apps basically have a little support of handling a larger data set. And the offline security and the security of overall application was also not really very good. The increase, but now they are developing as the time passes, we have seen that these apps are now performing in a much better way as compared to what they used to do a couple of years back. Similarly, going with the HTML5, we have experienced the same thing, that initially the data restrictions, the installation, the problems, they were there with the native as compared to native. We ourselves have found native as one of the most convenient way to develop apps, and I think if we go overall with the estimation of time and skill, and we take 2 of the applications, for example, Android and iOS, the development of native overall and the development of hybrid or HTML5 as compared, it has a little difference in terms of time and cost if we overall compare it. And they have their own advantages and disadvantages. Okay, so I think we have a question. Okay, so one of Oscar. Yeah, so Oscar has asked us a question that how do you handle the record level security? Basically, whenever a record has come into our application or gone out of the application, there's a token that is attached to the request that is sent in and out into the onto the server. And that token basically validates the user, that which user has basically entered the record information or updated the record information, or what information the user has tried. Also, we have applied the security keys on the application for those users and roles, so that the security key, so that even if an ambiguous user tries to change record of any information, it basically changes that information. It basically doesn't allow the change of that information. Okay. I hope, Oscar, I've answered your question. Okay, so let me jump onto the mobile architecture that we have, and then I'll show you our app, Dynamics app demo for the fast retrieval and the pagination that we have done in the end of this slide. Okay, so let me just get onto the architecture now. As you know, that architecture is the heart of any application or any server application that we have. So when we designed this architecture, it took us a lot of time to develop this model and this whole architecture. But let me just give you an overview on how beneficial this architecture is for any of the mobile applications. So here you see on the top, this area is basically our Dynamics AX layer, and it holds basically all the information and our X++ code that we have on the AX side. Now, the information of the emails, of the attachments, these are all kept into this Dynamics AX server. It's within your domain, and it's basically not accessible until you access the domain of the end user. Now, the whole information is kept here. The second part, the most important, the second part is this middleware part. Now, you can see here the middleware part. The middleware has 4 servers right now placed in this area. This middleware is really flexible. Now, this architecture diagram is based on AX 2009-2012 users, and for 365 we basically have moved our middleware into the server because it's online, so we do not need that middleware server right now for 365. But for AX 2012 and AX 2009 users, this middleware is the heart of the system. Now, it's a thin layer, so it doesn't contain any data information, any of the user information in it. It's basically a bridge between Dynamics AX and the end user. Basically what we have done is we have placed a load balancer in between, and the load balancer basically manages the load of the request that the end user forwards it to our server. These requests goes into one of our middleware server, which handles the request, moves it to Dynamics AX server, gets the response out, and returns it back to end user. Now, this middleware server, it can be a single server, it can be multiple servers placed in front of load balancer. It can be placed within the environment of end user and exposed via public IP. So this is a very flexible system that we have placed in between to handle basically handling and adding an additional layer of security on the Dynamics AX server, so that the request doesn't go in and flow into Dynamics AX as it is. Middleware server also connects. Sometimes we need an extra additional layer to connect of security on the middleware. So we have a third-party solution of security, and middleware basically validates itself, the request itself from that third-party server, and then on that validation it goes into Dynamics AX and processes those requests. Now, the next portion that you see on the lower left side is basically the notification server. Now, this server is basically used to handle all the notifications that are sent onto the mobile app. Like, for example, if a workflow starts up and it's assigned to you, and you want a notification to check whether it's assigned to me, or I should get a notification and whenever a workflow comes in, this notification server notifies you. Now this notification can be within the premises or outside the premises, wherever we want, based on whatever in whichever way we like. So this notification server is also flexible enough to be placed in any of the areas of the server. Now, the next important thing in this whole diagram is the attachments and the emails that you see on the Dynamics AX server. All the attachments that Dynamics AX have and the emails that we want to shoot out to customers are basically managed by the server itself rather than the middleware or notification server. Because it's important that every component should do its job properly, middleware job is to basically handle the request, the AX server job is to manage the data and the attachments and the email, the notification server job is to manage notifications. The client app, on the other hand, can be any app, mobile app, it can be an iOS app, it can be a Windows app, it can be an Android app. So whichever app we like, we can basically easily place this user end on, we can easily place this user on this app side. So this user can be any mobile app that we want or any tablet or any device that we like. Okay, so why basically use this architecture? Why not build something else? Why not connect directly? These are the questions that you must have in your mind. That why do we think that this architecture will help us build a better application as compared to if we go to some other thing? Well, these are some of the points. These are some of the benefits that we have come out when we have placed this architecture with number of our applications, with other connectors and other applications, and we have found good results out of it. First, it's highly customizable and robust. The middleware and the AX site implementation that we've done is very, 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 very customizable. So we can easily incorporate any of the new information, and some of the customers, if you talk to them, they'll definitely tell you that how easily those customizations were included in our existing structure. Middleware that we have adds an additional layer of security that I've already discussed with you, and the good thing is it doesn't hold any data. Its job is not to hold data, its job is to just validate the user, validate the token, and then forward the information to the server and take the information from the server and forward it back to the end user. The third one is can connect to any device. As I've told you, it can connect to any device or any external application. If you have some other application that you want your AX data to connect to, you can use this middleware easily and incorporate that data into your system. It can be hosted on cloud, on premises. As I've told you, the flexibility of the system is very good. So you can host it in any of the areas you like. And it's highly scalable at each level. Now we know that middleware can be scaled. As I've told you, this notification server can also be scaled in a way whichever we like, and it can grow in any way, vertically, horizontally. We can grow it any way we like. Okay, before we go into this, we have something for you on the Dynamics app. Let me just go in. Just pull it out for you guys. Okay, so unfortunately the mobile app was not working, so we pulled out our tablet app for you, and basically we pulled in the data and all the information that we have. So this is our Dynamics app, and here you can see all the information, customers, contacts. These are basically the heavy loaded information that usually have. Customer are the loaded one, the contacts are the loaded ones, which has huge amount of data. Let's jump into the customers first, and let's see how better the performance is. Now here you check. Can you check this? How quickly the data is fetched from the server onto the application in a very robust way. The whole data that we are seeing is paginated, and the data is being fetched based on the paginated data instead of pulling in all the information. If we go in and search something, for example, Contoso. Let's search Contoso. Yes, here you can see the contours information is pulled in a very, very rigorous way, in a very fast way. The data is paginated also. If you go in and check the pagination, it's also working on this data. And currently this data basically doesn't have that information to page, so it's completely filled. And also the detailed information is also pulled out. Now, this app has a very unique thing. Now, on the mobile side, if you go and check it on the App Store, only the list of these users are pulled in on the App Store, on the mobile app, rather than the information customer details. Similar way, on the tablets, this list is fetched in a separate call, and the details of that specific user that we've selected initially is in a separate call, so that the load balances out and the basic information is fetched instantly, and the user can see out his information very easily. We can see the amount of data that's being retrieved in this app and how easily and how fast and the performance-wise how better it is if we check overall its retrieved. I hope you like this demo, and let's just go into the final slides, the final area, and if you guys still have any questions, do post it, and we'll definitely be glad to answer those. Wait.
Okay, thanks Mubin, and thanks Rehan as well. So it's great to hear the session and hear the guys talking about mobility with so much vigor and so much enthusiasm. We do have a few clients on the webinar today as well. So guys, quick hello to you as well. You know who you are. So just to kind of wrap it up, and before we get into questions, and we do have like a few minutes left, so I just want to quickly cover this. So we are go-to experts when it comes to AX mobility or anything to do with AX really. We've got over 8 years of experience with Dynamics. We're actually one of Microsoft's featured mobility partners. On the Azure Marketplace. Our Dynamics app was one of the first applications to go live on there. So yeah, I just really want to move into the questions because I think that would at least take about 10 minutes or so as well. So I know we've got one from Louisville. So what I'll do is I'll just place you guys on hold for a quick second, and we'll answer that question. And then if there's anything else, we'll answer those as well.
Okay, so we have a question that if a customer is on Dynamics 365, why invest in so much on middleware rather than use Microsoft Mobile Framework, and what can full native do that Microsoft Framework can't, or use Power Apps for quick Microsoft apps? Okay, so regarding your first part of the question, I think I've covered this in the architecture. Let me just rephrase that. The architecture that we discussed was basically for AX 2012 and 2009 because it was on-premise, and we basically do not use this same architecture for 365. In 365, basically we use web APIs and OData calls that are the latest calls that are available with 365, and the communication is being done with that. So basically our middleware tier is merged in 365 into Dynamics AX itself. So that basically uses the whole of the data information. I hope that answers the first part of the question. The second one, what can full native do that Microsoft Framework can't? By full native, I thought you were talking about the applications. I think the full native app, the biggest advantage I think is basically the access that the full native apps have as compared to what we can do with hybrid and and HTML5 apps. And the HTML5 and basically the HTML5 and native are basically mobile enabled pages. So they're basically you can call them a web page in a mobile. So obviously there's a limitation. You can develop a single mobile app, web app for that. It's basically an alternative to that. So usually, basically, it's not that everyone or every customer prefers that, but it's based on the requirement. If you like to use that, you can obviously use that, but you have to make sure that the the data that is being sent in or out is basically maintained properly, and it's well maintained. Now the third one is the use of Power Apps and quick micro apps that we have right now, also the 365 enabled apps that we have. Now the first and the biggest problem that we think they have is how basically we are going to handle the customizations in these apps. Now if we have a very huge customization that we have done on the AX, usually AX 2009 and 2012 customer do have a heavy loaded customizations. So these apps, these quick apps basically doesn't fulfill the need of all those customizations that is what we have found when we use initially these things. Also the support of offline, the information that we want to maintain, and the offline data that we want, these are also not possible using these apps. So I think it's all about the plan that company goes. If they want a quick solution to be placed in, and they want to basically quickly place the app onto the hands of the user, you can initially use a Power App just to get the feel and look and how the people will use it. And in future, you can plan a proper mobility framework or plan so that you can develop apps for your organization that basically benefits the organization overall and in a broader way. So Oscar has one more question. Would it be easy to upgrade our mobile app seamlessly when we are upgrading 365 from 2009 to 365? Okay. So basically, yeah, it's quite easier for us. A little bit change is required, but it will not be too much of a hassle. As I've told you, that currently what we have done is we've moved our current middleware into the AX365. So most of the code that we have in our middleware is basically easily portable to the AX, and it's using C# as a code base, so that is easily transferable. So I think that won't create a problem. We haven't done it right now with any of the apps right now, but as per what we've done with overall structure, we've seen that this porting will not take a lot of time for us, because we know that our customers do plan to move to 365, so we have developed the 365 structure in a way so that their customizations can also be incorporated easily in there. Okay, so if you guys, after the presentation, you go in, review it again, and any questions pop out in your mind, anything you want to discuss, you have all the information of our link, our website, and you can contact us there easily, and we'll be glad to help you out in any way possible. Jason?
Okay, thank you so much. And I've just opened up a final poll just to get feedback. I know our presenters all very much appreciate anything you want to add there, or obviously to add anything in the chat as well, if you want to communicate any other feedback. We have recorded today's event, and we will be sharing that soon as well. But with that, I think we will begin to wrap up. So Ovais, Rehan, Mobeen, thank you so much for taking the time to present today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, guys. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. And with that, we will conclude today's event. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.